Good evening. If you've come this far, it's probably because sleep has been delayed again. That happens. The body wants to rest, but the mind insists on continuing. So let's try something else, an older path, a story made to calm you down. Today, you'll hear about the birth of Aphrodite, a goddess who emerged not from a womb, but from foam, not from peace, but from a cut. And yet, or perhaps because of that, she became a symbol of love, of desire, of what cannot be controlled. If you want to support this temple of sleep, you can like or follow, only if you feel like it. Now, lie down calmly, adjust the pillow, close your eyes for a while. The world has already made enough noise today. Here, everything starts slowly. Before Aphrodite, there were no gods as we know them, no clear sky, no solid ground. There was chaos, an immense and silent void. From this void, Gaia, the earth, emerged. And from Gaia, Uranus, the sky, was born. They joined forces, and from this union came the Titans, children large, ancient, too strong to fit into the world. Uranus, afraid of them, locked them inside their own mother's body. Can you imagine being a mother and a prison at the same time? Gaia felt pain, but also resentment. And one day, tired, she created a stone sickle. She gave it to Cronus, her youngest son. He accepted. When Uranus lay down on Earth once more, Cronus attacked him. He castrated his father. The cry from heaven was lost in space. Blood fell on Earth. The severed limb fell into the sea. The water stirred. Foam rose. Something began to be born there. You are standing on the beach, looking out at the sea. The foam shimmers in a strange way. There is no thunder, no music, just a slight movement in the water, and then it appears. Aphrodite. She didn't come from a mother. She didn't grow in anyone's womb. She emerged whole from the foam, as if she already knew the world needed her. Clear skin, long hair, steady eyes. She doesn't seem surprised, just alive. The sea pushes her to the beach, as if she knew the way. No one calls her, but she arrives, and that's enough. You watch from afar. She steps on the sand, and each step seems too silent. The hours, goddesses of time, appear. They dress Aphrodite in a light cloak. She accepts. She doesn't thank them. She doesn't need them. Her presence already changes the air. The gods feel it. Zeus, Hera, Athena, they look at her. They say nothing, because something about her disturbs them. It's not just beauty. It's what comes with it. Desire, confusion, power. Aphrodite doesn't ask for permission, and yet they all adjust to her presence. You feel it too, as if she's too close, even from a distance, as if she's looking right into you and smiling, not with contempt, but with certainty, as if she understands everything and doesn't mind. She doesn't speak, she just watches. And that's too much. You still don't know what she's going to do, but you already know that she didn't come by chance, nor as a reward, nor as punishment. She simply came, and that changes everything. Now breathe, slowly. Let the sound of the sea repeat in your mind. The foam, the light wind, the feet sinking into the sand. Aphrodite has arrived, and you're here to see it. But you don't need to understand everything now, nor remember it later. You can just feel it. Tomorrow, the story continues. Today, it's enough to know that she was born, and that you can sleep too. Before Aphrodite, the world was a place of no hurry, no clear-cut shapes, an ancient space where silence was thicker than air. All that existed was chaos. Not the modern chaos that means confusion, but the primordial chaos, a still void where time had not yet begun. No sounds, no faces, no names, just space, waiting for something. From this void, Gaia emerged. the first. The earth. She was not born. She simply appeared. A steady, fertile, silent presence. Gaia stretched out in all directions. She was ground. She was depth. She was everything that could sustain life. Even before she knew what life meant, Gaia was body. She was home. She was shelter. But she was also solitude, so she created Uranus. The sky, a huge, shining roof. He appeared to cover her, to touch her, to surround her. At first it was good. He wrapped her every night with his body made of stars. Gaia felt his weight and accepted it. Together, they created the Titans. Huge, ancient, intense children. There were 12 of them. Too strong, too alive, too free. And that frightened Uranus. He didn't want children who could surpass him. So, he pushed them back into the earth. He locked them in their mother's womb, not out of open malice, but out of fear. A fear that doesn't speak loudly, but dominates. Gaia groaned silently. Her body ached, not from giving birth, but from not being able to let them be born. She felt her children writhing inside her. They were alive, conscious, but trapped. Darkness, tightness, an endless weight. You are there with them, in that narrow space, without light, without sound, where the gods grow slowly. The floor is damp. The walls are alive. Everything pulses. Time here is different. Every thought seems to repeat itself for millennia. Kronos is among them, the youngest of the Titans. He listens to the earth. Gaia speaks to him without words, an ancient communication made of vibration, heat, will. One day, she hands him a stone sickle, not a weapon of war, a tool, but also a cut, a decision. Kronos understands. Not completely, but he understands enough. Uranus keeps coming back every night. He lies down on the earth, and she endures, until the day Cronus acts. When the sky approaches the earth, Cronus leaps out of it. With his scythe, he strikes his father. He cuts. He castrates. The scream that comes from Uranus is not just pain. It is the sound of an era ending. A world where everything was contained, suspended, immutable. The heavenly blood falls on Gaia, but a part of Uranus's body, the one that was severed, falls into the sea. And that is where another story begins. The sea receives the cut piece with indifference. It does not retreat. It is not surprised. It simply accepts it. Water stirs around it. Foam begins to form. White, thick, full of salt and something new. A strange warmth is born there, as if that old pain had become something else. A seed that did not need a womb. A gestation made only of residue and transformation. You approach the shore. The sky is still dark. The beach is empty. The waves break low, repeatedly. On the horizon, the foam swirls. There is no rush. The water seems to know what it is doing. Something is forming there. Slowly, you feel goosebumps on your skin, not out of fear, but out of recognition, as if your body already knows who is coming. Aphrodite has not yet appeared, but the sea is already pregnant with her. The wind changes. The light begins to appear behind the clouds. The moment of emergence approaches, and you are present, witness, not with your eyes open, but with your senses still. Everything around you slows down. The foam sings. The sea lulls. The silence leaves space for something new. And it is in this moment of waiting between pain and beauty that the myth prepares to reveal to you what comes next. For now, just stay. You stand on the threshold between worlds, between the time of the Titans and the time of the gods. Aphrodite is still a promise, but she is close. The tide rises, the air changes, and you breathe slowly, feeling that something is about to touch the land. For the first time, time passes strangely before the birth of the gods. It doesn't run, It doesn't walk, it just exists. Trapped like the children of Gaia, waiting deep inside, in the womb of the earth, you hear the muffled sound of the ancient world. Nothing is clear, nothing is fast. Everything moves slowly, as if each decision took centuries to be born. The Titans are all together, compressed into a space that shouldn't contain so many bodies. They don't talk, they don't know what talking is. But they recognize each other. They know they are together. They feel each other like a dull vibration, like heat accumulated under the skin. You feel it too. You are there among them, not as a god, but as a presence. Each Titan has its own shape and weight, even before it has a name. They are dense entities, made of raw material. Oceanus is wide and silent. Hyperion shines from within like a glowing coal. Thea, Phoebe, Mnemosyne, they all sleep without sleep. They dream without form, and they all wait. They wait for what they do not know, because they do not yet know the idea of change. They only know tightness, limits, containment. Kronos is different. He feels anger. He doesn't know why, but he does. The anger isn't explosive. It's constant, a spark that repeats itself every time Uranus covers Gaia. He feels his mother shrink. He feels the sky press down on the earth without care, and it bothers him. It's a slow but growing discomfort, a discomfort that turns into a thought, a desire that doesn't yet know how to express itself. Meanwhile, outside, Gaia watches her body with a strange kind of sadness. She feels her children inside, not with affection, but with urgency. They need to come out, but they can't. Gaia can't drive them out. Uranus won't let her. Every night, heaven covers Earth, not as a lover, but as a cell, and she begins to revolt, not with screams, but with creation. Gaia, being Earth, shapes. She makes a scythe out of the mountains, a curved blade made of stone and intention, and she whispers to her children, there in the dark, "Who will free me?" The question echoes among the Titans, but none of them move. No one really understands what freedom is. No one knows what lies outside, until Kronos answers, not with words, with a gesture. He reaches out and holds the scythe. You stand beside him. You feel the cold of the primitive metal. The scythe is not magic. It does not glow. It simply exists, like a beginning, like a choice. Kronos holds on tight. He looks up, as if he can see his father's face, even buried in the darkness. Gaia does not smile. She simply watches. The next night, Uranus descends as usual. Covering Gaia has become a habit. He feels no guilt. He does not think about his children. He has forgotten them, but that night is different. Cronus waits, with his eyes open, with his body ready, and when Uranus lies down, Cronus acts. The blow is not clean, it is brutal. A cut without elegance, without honor. It is a gesture that interrupts an era. The cry of Uranus pierces the heavens. Blood falls like thick rain on the earth. The stars tremble. Time speeds up for a second. You see the moment when everything changes. Uranus tries to pull away, but it is too late. The severed limb flies away, plunging into the sea. Gaia says nothing. Cronus says nothing either. The silence after the cut is heavier than the act itself. It is a silence of new beginnings, of something that cannot be undone. From the blood that drips onto the earth, new beings are born. The Erinyes, the giants, the nymphs. But it is in the sea that the most unexpected happens. The member floats, surrounded by foam, and something begins to boil there. But that's for later. Now the Titans are free. Cronus has freed his brothers. They emerge from their mother's womb as if they were leaving a prison. Some hesitate, others scream. There is confusion, relief, but also fear. The world is now big, open, without walls, and that is frightening. Cronus takes control. He has defeated his father. It is only natural that he becomes the new ruler. He ascends the throne, made of stone and shadow. Time begins to truly flow. For the first time, the seasons change, day and night alternate. But Cronus has learned something from his father. He has learned to be afraid, and this fear will grow. But that is another part of the story. For now, you can still feel the blood of heaven on earth, the scythe in Kronos' hand, the Titans breathing fresh air for the first time, and somewhere in the distance, the sea churning silently, as if it were preparing something that has not yet arrived. But it's coming. You are still there. Amid the echoes of the cut, Uranus's scream has dissolved into the sky, but the air remains dense, charged with something that still has no name. The Titans breathe slowly for the first time. Without being contained within their mother's body, they walk, touch the ground, look at the horizon. But they don't say much. They don't know what it's like to live outside. The world seems immense, and at the same time empty, as if everything had just been born, still half formless, half colorless. And Gaia watches them, not sweetly, but expectantly, like someone who plants a seed and wants to know if it will bear fruit or be poisoned. Kronos stands out, not only because he carried the scythe, but because he doesn't seem shaken. While his brothers are still getting used to freedom, he stands up, firm, cold, with his face turned upwards, where his father used to be. Uranus is gone. Yes, but fear is not. Kronos feels something strange in his chest. It's not guilt. It's a kind of distrust, as if he knows that one day what he did could happen again, and that the blade of the scythe does not belong to a name. Gaia feels this fear, but says nothing. She watches her son with eyes that have seen too much. You know that history is never content to stop, and that what is born from the cut also carries the desire to protect its own throne. Cronus declares the new order. He is the king of the Titans. Time now begins to have direction, a before and an after, and that changes everything. You walk alongside them, you hear the heavy footsteps of the primordial gods. The trees begin to grow, the rivers seek their beds, the world is slowly getting organized. But Kronos does not relax. He puts away his scythe, like someone hiding a scar he doesn't want others to see. And over time, he begins to fear it more than he remembers it. Gaia, silently, begins to change too. She is not just earth, she is memory, and her body still holds the impact of what happened. Uranus's blood has penetrated deep into her skin. She feels it, and she feels that the sea, far away, has begun to sing differently since that day, not with anger, but with promise. While Cronus tries to maintain order, Gaia turns her attention to the ocean. There, in the foam, something is growing, still formless, but real, and she knows this is not just the end of an era. It is the beginning of another. But that is still a secret. You return to the time of Cronus. Now he rules. He divides functions among his brothers. He rules time with calculated hands, but he doesn't smile. He never smiles. Because a prophecy haunts him. Gaia, or perhaps fate itself, whispered, just as he overthrew his father, so will a son of his overthrow him. And that is enough. Fear sets in again. Cronus then does what he knows best, what he learned from Uranus. He begins to swallow his children. But we are not there yet. We are still in the interval between two forces. The world is calm, and the sea, far away, continues to move slowly. The foam swirls. The water breathes. Something is forming. Gaia feels. You feel. It is not a threat. It is not salvation. It is something else. Meanwhile, above, the new stars begin to shine. Pale lights that cut through the darkness. The universe expands. And in the midst of this still silent vastness, the scythe of Kronos remains hidden, but present. It has not been discarded. It will never be forgotten, because whoever cuts once knows that he can be cut again. You, walking through this new land, feel a kind of pause, as if the world took a deep breath before something. Kronos reigns. Gaia watches, and the sea prepares. The moment of castration has passed, but the consequences have not yet fully arrived. They come with the tide, with the foam, with the birth of something that no one expects. But before that, before the goddess's first glance, before your first step on the sand, you need to understand the weight, the silence between two acts, the space between fear and desire. You are in this gap, sitting on the edge of the world. Time slips away slowly. The sound of the sea remains constant, repeated, soft. The stars in the sky seem still. But you know, everything is about to change again. And this time, not because of violence, but because of something even more disturbing. For beauty, the night does not end. Not in the time of the gods. The light is not yet the sun. It is a timid glow, as if the world were afraid to show itself completely. After the fall of Uranus, silence weighs heavily again. Cronus has taken the throne, but there is no celebration, no banquet, no singing. The world that opened up after the cut is still a contained world. You feel it. You walk among stones that do not yet have names, rivers that flow without a destination. The earth seems to breathe more freely, but with a certain distrust, as if it knew that what was freed also carries the potential to imprison again. Cronus keeps the scythe. He doesn't throw it away. He buries it in a high mountain, as if he wants to forget, but he can't. The image of his father bleeding still occupies his mind. Uranus has disappeared from the heavens. Now all that's left is space, a cold, blue void that no one dares to occupy. The other titans avoid talking about it. And you understand, because there are things that, even divine, continue to be trauma. Gaia is silent. She has achieved what she wanted. She has freed herself from the weight of the sky. But what remains after revenge? She looks out at the sea. The cut that Cronus made has opened more than one body. It has opened a fissure between time, and at the bottom of the ocean, where no one looks directly, something else begins to form. You approach the shore. The sound of the waves is calm, but continuous. The sea moves with a patience that only the elements know. Deep down, the member of Uranus floats. The ancient flesh, cut, bathed in salt. It does not rot. It does not die. It spins. It boils. Something grows around it. A dense, white, living foam. The sea seems to know what it is doing. The water envelops it with a care that the sky has never had. The foam begins to sing, not with a voice, but with rhythm, as if the waves were cradling an invisible seed. The heat there is not from the sun, it is from transformation. Time there is not the same as in the rest of the world. It is circular, slow, maternal. You don't see her face yet, but you feel it. Her presence grows. She doesn't have a name yet, but she's already having an effect. The sea swirls around her. The seagulls move away. The sky watches. The water parts slowly, as if afraid of frightening. The foam pulses, and something, or someone, begins to form in the center of this white tide. Far away, the titans continue their existence, building rules, organizing time, trying to make the world something predictable. But this thing growing in the sea does not obey. It does not belong. It did not come to follow order. It came to confuse. Gaia feels it first, a slight tremor in the earth, as if her body were responding to something she doesn't understand. She doesn't speak to her children. She doesn't warn anyone. She just watches and takes a deep breath, because what is born from Uranus's cut is no longer fury. It is desire. You feel it. At the edge of the sea, your feet sink lightly into the wet sand. The wind touches your face. With more intent, the water begins to rise, but not with force, with constancy. The foam already covers the rocks. It shines in the weak light of dawn, and in the middle of it, a figure begins to rise, still without a face, still without a clear form, but already with a presence. The sea does not reject it. It welcomes it. The sky does not hide it. It contemplates it. The earth stops. Even the sound of the wind seems to diminish. It is an instant that stretches, a birth that refuses to be rushed. Aphrodite is on her way. She did not come with thunder, like Zeus, nor with spears, like Athena, nor with scales, nor with paws, nor with swords. She did not come to win. She does not need that. Her origin is enough. She was not born from the womb. She was not desired. She was a consequence, and yet she rises as if everything had been planned from the beginning. You breathe slowly. You feel your skin crawl, not from fear, from presence, like when someone enters a room and without saying a word, changes the air. Your body feels it before the name arrives. The foam sings louder. The sea shines in gold and silver. The sky opens slowly, as if curious. And then, the figure becomes defined. A woman's figure. Clear, moist skin, long hair, eyes still closed. She doesn't speak, but the whole world seems to listen. Aphrodite is almost here, and the world will change again. The sea holds the moment for a few more moments, as if it knows it is about to reveal something that cannot be unsaid. The foam spins with more precision, more intention. The waves now have rhythm. The light from the sky brightens slowly, as if it doesn't want to scare you. You are on the sand. Still, your body is calm. The ocean air reaches your face with the scent of salt, flowers, and something you can't name. A light warmth begins to envelop everything, and then, in the center of the foam, she appears. Aphrodite. There is no thunder. There are no angels. There is no sound of fanfare. There is only the sea receding, as if offering space. She emerges, her body erect, her eyes still closed. The water runs down her skin as if it were part of her. Her face is calm. Her features are serene, but not submissive. There is something inevitable in her expression, as if the world has remembered something it had forgotten, as if she had always been there, and only now have the eyes of the world opened enough to see her. You watch in silence. The sound of the waves seems to have disappeared. Time, for a few seconds, stops running. Aphrodite doesn't need to run. You don't need to explain anything. Your body is naked, but there is no shame. The foam still covers part of your shoulders, like a cape that dissolves with the wind. Your hair falls long, dark and wet, stuck to your skin, but little by little, the rising sun dries it, and where the light touches it, everything seems to take on another color. She walks. Her feet sink lightly into the sand, but they leave no marks, as if the ground respects her too much to hold her. She doesn't look at you. Not yet, but you feel that she knows you're there, not as a threat, but as a witness. The goddess steps onto the ground for the first time, and the earth itself responds. Small flowers appear. The sand changes texture. The air warms. The silence gains weight. The hours, daughters of time, appear. No one calls them. They simply appear. 3 delicate goddesses, dressed in breeze and light, approach Aphrodite with gentle gestures. They do not kneel, but they also do not dare to touch her without invitation. They wrap her in a light cloak made of golden threads. The fabric seems to float over her body as if it did not want to hide her, only to accompany her. They comb her hair with fingers made of season. They place flowers on her wrists. They murmur something that only she understands. Aphrodite opens her eyes, and in that instant, the world changes. It is not an aggressive look. It is a look that sees, that understands. that chooses what it pretends not to know. You feel it straight in your chest, as if something inside you had been touched from the inside. She does not impose, but disarms, and that is exactly why no one can resist. Aphrodite's eyes scan the beach. She sees the sea that gave birth to her, the sky that watches her, the earth that welcomes her. And she does not smile, nor does she cry. She simply is. You don't know if you should get closer. You don't know if you can, but you don't want to leave either. Your body no longer obeys logic. You just stay, as if being present were enough, and it is. Because Aphrodite doesn't demand, but transforms. The hours begin to walk with her. With each step, the landscape changes. Birds appear, stones shine, the wind dances. It is not magic in the traditional sense. It is something simpler and more dangerous. It is the effect of beauty when it does not apologize for existing. And Aphrodite does not apologize. She does not feign modesty. She knows what she is. And the world responds. The other gods have not seen her yet. They do not know yet, but they will feel her. Olympus is already shaking in silence. Zeus dreams of a name he has never heard before. Hera feels a presence she cannot control. Athena, even in her right mind, is restless, because the order that the Titans built will be shaken, not by war, but by something deeper. Aphrodite won't take anyone's throne, but she will make everyone look again at what they desire, and that, to the gods, is worse than a threat. It's a mirror. She continues walking along the beach. Her eyes now observe the horizon, as if she knows that the next step lies there. The world is vast, but not bigger than your presence. You remain still. Your heart is calm, but awake. Your skin feels everything. The wind, the salt, the light, the memory of something you may never have experienced. And you understand, the birth has already happened. There was no pain, no effort, just consequence. Aphrodite has arrived, and the age of desire begins now. The sun is now truly shining, not aggressively, but with respect, as if even it had waited for Aphrodite to appear to show herself in full. The sky is clear, a deep, calm blue. The sea continues to recede, little by little, still silent, as if exhausted from giving birth. And you remain there, sitting on the sand, watching, trying to understand how such a new presence can seem so old. It has only been there for a few minutes, but it is as if the whole world has always revolved around this moment. Aphrodite walks along the beach unhurriedly. The golden cloak that the hours gave her still hangs over her body like mist. Her feet touch the sand delicately, but each step changes something around her. Not in a visible way. You feel it. The air changes. Your skin shivers. The sounds of nature seem to adjust to her. And you realize that her beauty is not just form, it is state. Aphrodite does not need to show herself. Her simple presence is more than enough. She stops for a moment. She closes her eyes. She breathes. And when she opens them, she looks at the sky for a long time, as if she recognizes the void that Uranus once was, as if she already knows that occupying that space is not her job. She does not want to replace. She does not want to dominate, but there is not a single part of the world that does not bow, even if in silence, before her. You watch her from the side, with respect, not knowing what to do with your own hands. She hasn't spoken yet. Not a single word, but you understand everything. You understand that she is, at the same time, what is missing and what is left over. You understand that she was born not to complete a story, but to begin a new one. And the gods, they don't know yet, but something is changing on Olympus. Up above, among clouds and palaces of light, Zeus wakes from a restless sleep. He sees a nameless face. He feels a strange warmth in his chest. And for a second, He doesn't know who it is. Hera looks out the window and feels the wind blowing differently, a light, fresh scent that makes her frown. Athena feels a pang of anxiety for no clear reason. Eros, not yet born, is already stirring in the womb of Tassim. Something is coming. Someone has already arrived. Aphrodite continues on her way. The hours follow her in silence. The world seems to learn from her. Flowers sprout effortlessly. The sand settles beneath her feet. The birds follow her movement as if they were part of a natural choreography. You notice something curious. She doesn't look back. Not for a moment, as if she knows that the past does not define her. She was born from foam, from cutting, from ancestral violence, but none of that holds her back. She belongs to the now and to the after. You try to remember other figures like this, but there are none. No god, no hero, no monster has ever emerged with such calm, such certainty, such freedom. And that is what is disconcerting, because Aphrodite is not chaotic, but she is not controllable either. She is not fury, but she is not passive either. She just goes on, without fear of being observed, without haste, without justification. She approaches a large rock near the sea. She sits down with simple elegance, as if she had done this 1,000 times before. You see the sun touch her skin. The glow is not magical, but it is impossible to ignore. Her eyes turn to the horizon, and there, in that gesture, you understand what the gods are yet to learn. Aphrodite does not need to act to make an impact. Her existence is enough. The desire she inspires does not come from promises. It comes from what others hide. The impulse, the longing, the lack. And that's what's going to mess everything up. Zeus will try to control her. Hephaestus will try to imprison her. Ares will fall in love. Hermes will admire her from afar. Hera will be suspicious. Athena will pretend she doesn't care. But all of them will be touched by her, because Aphrodite doesn't need to impose herself. She just needs to exist. You close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, feel the salt in the air, the warmth of the sun on your face, the silence all around. Aphrodite is still sitting, looking out at the sea, and for a moment, you wonder if she feels lonely, if someone so naturally powerful also carries some absence. But there is no answer. Maybe she doesn't even know. Maybe the loneliness is part of the charm. Or maybe she just accepts that being misunderstood is the price of existing so fully. She stands up slowly. She looks at you for a second. It's just a glance, but you feel seen, not judged, not wanted, just noticed, as if, for a brief moment, you too existed with the same clarity. And then she follows, Aphrodite walking on earth, the foam behind her, the world still trying to understand. The sea continues to push Aphrodite, gently, as if it still doesn't want to leave her. The beach where she was born is left behind, but the ocean doesn't let go of its creation so quickly. The waves rock her carefully, the salt mixes with her skin, and the sun shines a little brighter. Without exaggeration, the light seems made for her. The world is still silent, as if it were watching, respectful, and she continues, without an announced destination, without a map, without a compass. She just goes, and you go with her, in thought, in presence, in stillness. Aphrodite glides through the water until she reaches a piece of land that seems ready to receive her. The island of Cyprus, an ancient land surrounded by pale rocks, pine trees, small flowers, and a constant wind. A lonely island, but not empty. The kind of place that doesn't need to attract attention to be beautiful. She arrives with her feet almost floating. The water kisses her legs one last time before retreating, and the land accepts without resistance, as if it already knew. Cyprus is no ordinary land. It is made of stone, salt, and silence. But in that moment, when Aphrodite sets foot there for the first time, something changes. The ground shakes slightly, not violently, but reverently. Flowers bloom where her feet touch, small, resilient, the kind of flowers that don't need much to grow, just the right moment. The breeze changes direction. It comes from behind her, pushing the scent of the foam into the island. You watch everything from afar. You feel the entire island bending, even though it doesn't. A natural temple begins to form, not with columns or marble, but with wind, smell, and light. Her presence is enough, and that is rare, even for gods. Aphrodite walks among white stones. The cloak that the hours placed over her now seems part of her body. The gold reflects the sun subtly. The trees do not move. They accompany her with soft shade. The animals do not run away. The island accepts her as if it had been waiting for her for a long time. And perhaps it had. Cyprus becomes a sanctuary before it becomes a temple. No priest, no altar, no offering, but it is already sacred because it is the first place you understood, that you felt, that you recognized without demanding an explanation. And Aphrodite notices, even if she doesn't say it, even if you never admit it, she feels the welcome, and for a moment she almost smiles. You notice that almost, a slight curve of the lips, a small movement of the eyes. It's like seeing a star twinkle in the middle of the afternoon. Rare, but enough. You breathe deeper, the island air feels cleaner, and your body feels lighter. The gods watch from a distance. Zeus feels a restlessness he can't name. Hera clenches her fists in silence. Athena pretends to be too busy to care, but everyone has heard. The new goddess has emerged, not as a threat, not as a daughter, as a fact, and that bothers, because Olympus is always organized in hierarchy, by birth, by right, but Aphrodite is an exception, and exceptions do not ask for permission. On the island, nymphs begin to appear. They spring from the trees, the sea, the caves. Ancient creatures, feminine, free. They approach Aphrodite as equals. They do not kneel. They do not back away. They smile. They lightly touch her hair. They place crowns of leaves and flowers on her head. No words are spoken, because everything is already clear. The first worship begins there, unintentionally, without ritual, just presence, just admiration, just the understanding that something has changed, and that this change does not need to be explained to be felt. Aphrodite closes her eyes. She hears the sounds of the island, the sea in the distance, the birds above, the whispering of the nymphs, and she breathes, for the first time, for real, as if she accepts being there. And in that moment, you realize the birth is over. The crossing from the foam to the earth has been made. The goddess now exists completely, but this is just the beginning. The world will still try to fit her into categories, into roles, into alliances, but none of this will last long, because Aphrodite is everything that slips through the cracks, everything you feel without knowing why. She was not made to be organized. She was made to be felt. You sit under a low tree, in silence. You see the light filtering through the leaves. The sun's heat is good, not excessive. The breeze continues to pass slowly, and there, on that ancient island, you know that you are facing something rare, the beginning of an era, a new way of being in the world. Aphrodite walks among the rocks, with the lightness of someone who is not afraid of the ground, and wherever she goes, the world changes, effortlessly. The breeze is blowing more firmly now, not like a gale, but like an announcement. Aphrodite remains in Cyprus, walking among rocks and flowers. But the tranquility of the island begins to be observed from afar. On Olympus, the gods, until then occupied with their disputes and routines, begin to notice her presence, not as noise, not as an explicit threat, but as a force that imposes itself through the absence of effort. And this, for someone who is used to conquering everything with noise, is deeply uncomfortable. Zeus is the first to feel it, not with his eyes, but with his body, a discomfort in his chest, as if something had escaped his field of influence. He, the Lord of the heavens, accustomed to controlling storms and destinies, does not understand what this new restlessness is. He hears her name blowing through the winds, Aphrodite, a name with no clear lineage, no official genealogy, and yet no one questions her divinity. This irritates him, even if he does not say so, because she did not come from an act of his will. She simply appeared, and this makes him feel small. Hera feels something else, a subtle unease, not of jealousy, but of instability. She represents order, marriage, structure, and seeing a goddess emerge from the sea, without rules, without alliances, without a predefined place, messes with her logic. Hera observes Aphrodite from afar with narrowed eyes, as if trying to find a flaw, but she can't find one because Aphrodite doesn't hide, nor does she explain herself. Athena, unlike the other two, tries to ignore it. She pretends it doesn't matter, that it's not relevant. After all, Aphrodite has no weapons, no shield, no military strategy. But Athena knows. She feels it. Beauty is also a force, a field of influence, and this new goddess dominates it with ease, an ease that Athena despises but envies in silence, because everything she has achieved has been with effort, and Aphrodite just needs to be there. The other gods notice too. Hermes is interested. Ares is worried. Apollo smiles in disguise. Hestia, as always, watches in silence, but they all feel the same thing. Something has changed, and Olympus has never liked changes that were not decided in assembly. On the island, Aphrodite notices she doesn't need divine vision to feel the weight of the gazes. She doesn't get shaken. She doesn't rush. She continues exploring the stone paths, touching the leaves, feeling the texture of the world beneath her feet. She understands that she is being watched, but she doesn't adjust her posture. She doesn't dress up anymore. She doesn't hide less. This, perhaps, is what irritates the gods the most. She doesn't react. You watch closely. You see the way Aphrodite breathed, as if she were in no hurry to prove anything, as if each gesture were natural, but deeply calculated, not by tactics, but by nature. She does not seek to seduce, but she knows she is seducing, and she deals with it with the calm of someone who has already accepted her own effect. The hours are still with her, but now a little further away, as if they recognize that the newborn goddess no longer needs to be accompanied. They took care of the arrival, but now the path is hers alone. Aphrodite stops on a rock. She looks at the sea from where she came, not as nostalgia, but as a functional memory. She knows what brought her here. She knows what formed her, but she carries no debt for it. On Olympus, a rumor begins. Her name circulates more frequently. No one has seen her in person, but everyone has an image, different in each mind. For some, she is dark, for others, golden. Some swear her eyes are as clear as the sky. Others say they are as dark as wine, and everyone is right, because Aphrodite has no single form. She appears different to each gaze. She molds herself to the desire of whoever sees her, without losing her own center. You can clearly see this. You see how her beauty is not only in her body, but in the sensation she leaves behind. It's like a perfume that you can't identify, but that stays in your memory. Like a song that you can't remember where you heard it, but that accompanies you for the rest of the day. Aphrodite stands up. The wind blows harder. The sky now begins to call. The gods will want to see her. Zeus will certainly try to integrate her into the pantheon under conditions. He will try to bind her to alliances, titles, and roles, but he will not succeed completely, because Aphrodite was born from the cut, from the rupture, from what is left when control ends. And for this reason, she escapes any framework. You see her shadow stretch across the stone. She is beautiful, but not gentle. She is soft, but not fragile. She is young, but ancient. And when she looks up to Olympus, you understand, she knows she will be called, that she will be judged, that she will be desired. But she also knows that this is all part of the game, and she has already started playing. The afternoon slowly falls over Cyprus. The light changes color, and everything seems softer. The shadows lengthen. The wind cools a little. Aphrodite is still there, sitting on a rock, looking at the sea, feeling the silence, but it is not the same silence as before. Now, the world breathes more deeply. Something has reorganized itself, and you know, it was not just a goddess who was born. It was a beginning, a force that no one was expecting. Up above, Olympus begins to stir. Zeus summons the gods to talk. Her name is spoken cautiously. Some feign disinterest, others exaggerate the questions. But everyone, absolutely everyone, wants to see her. They want to know if what they heard is true, that she transforms the air, that she is impossible to forget, that she looks and dismantles, not with physical power, but with something more delicate and more dangerous. Beauty. Aphrodite, for now, is not ascending to Olympus. She is in no hurry. The earth welcomes her very well. Mortals do not yet know her, but the island already feels her presence. The trees grow with more color, the fruits ripen faster, the flowers open earlier, even the animals act differently. As if something had enchanted them, but without a spell, a natural effect. You follow all this, as if you were walking through a dream that makes too much sense. You observe how the spaces adjust to the goddess. She doesn't force anything, things simply happen. It's as if the world were returning to an original state. Something before fear, before order, and then you understand. Aphrodite is not only beautiful on the outside, her beauty is action. It is a living force, a movement that changes everything around it. She enters a space, and bodies change. Intentions change, choices change, and no one can explain why. This is the part that scares the gods the most, because it cannot be measured, nor contained, nor predicted. Cronus, with all the control he imposed on time, never understood this kind of power. He ruled with fear, with limits, with punishment. But Aphrodite does not punish. She offers, and that is much harder to resist. Zeus begins to consider possibilities. A loose goddess is a problem. Even if she doesn't say anything, her impact is already spreading. He thinks about giving her a title, a role, maybe a marriage, something that puts her under supervision. But that's a problem too, because who does? One marry a goddess who was born whole. How do you control someone who doesn't need anyone to exist? Deep down, he knows Aphrodite was not made to follow orders, and that bothers him. Not because she challenges him, but because she exists outside the system, and every system fears what it cannot classify. Aphrodite feels this movement from a distance, not with anger, but with a kind of weariness that seems too old for such a young goddess. She closes her eyes, places her hand over her heart, breathes. She knows she will be called, that she will be surrounded by proposals, alliances, promises. But there is still time. There is still a little peace before the game begins. You walk close to her, in silence. There is no need for words. Sometimes, just being together is enough. She opens her eyes for a moment and looks at you, a look that asks nothing, but also demands nothing, a look that simply acknowledges. There, you feel something different, not sexual desire, not blind adoration, something simpler and deeper, a recognition. as if a long-forgotten part of you is being awakened by that look, as if it is saying, you feel it too, you know it too, and you know, even without knowing how to explain it. Aphrodite's power is not in her physical beauty, although she is beautiful. It is in what she causes, in what she reveals. She doesn't force anything. She shows what was already there inside, and that's what makes it all the more dangerous, because there is no defense against what is born from within. The first rumors among mortals already begin. Fishermen who saw a woman shining on the shore, women who dreamed of a figure of light and salt, children who sing melodies that no one taught them. Her influence begins even before the cult, even before the word, and you feel that this is just the beginning. Aphrodite stands up. The sky begins to darken, but she doesn't change her pace. She doesn't run. She doesn't say goodbye. She just walks towards the interior of the island, as if she were going to find something or someone. The world has already adjusted to her presence. Now, you're going to have to deal with the impact. The next day comes gently. The light doesn't invade. It just enters, as if it knows that there is something new walking the earth, and that time now must be kind. Aphrodite moves across the island of Cyprus, as if she had belonged there from the beginning. But something has changed. She is no longer alone. You sense it even before you see her. The air has become more rhythmic. The shadows on the leaves have begun to move in a pattern. And then, between the pine trees and the white stones, the hours appear. They are not goddesses like the others. They do not shout. They do not fight. They do not dispute. They are the guardians of time, the ones who keep the seasons in order, the ones who know the rhythm of the world, not by force, but by constancy. There are 3 of them, and they walk together. They have calm eyes, light hands, and a presence that imposes silence without asking. They approach Aphrodite with a different respect, not of fear, but of recognition. Aphrodite stops walking. She looks at them. She doesn't speak, but she understands. The hours don't speak either, but they act, as they always do. One holds the goddess's hands. Another undoes her old cloak. The third puts on her a new cloak, lighter, looser, made of fabric, invisible to human eyes, a cloak that seems to be made of wind. The hours don't explain the gesture. There's no need. It's a ritual, a confirmation. You observe everything from afar. You feel like you're in front of something ancient, a ceremony that needs no words, because time, at this moment, has already said everything. Aphrodite is not just a visitor on Earth. She is now part of the cycle, and the cycle recognizes her. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Desire, flower, fall, and silence. Everything is connected, and Aphrodite is the point of instability that balances. She closes her eyes. The hours touch her face, her hair, her shoulders. They are gentle touches, like those of someone caring for something fragile. Even though they know that something is too strong to break, they lead her down a narrow path, a corridor between tall trees. Light filters in from above. The ground is covered in dry leaves. The air is cold, but not hostile. They lead her to a circular space, an open field hidden in the middle of the forest. There, the seasons blend together. There are flowers, fruits, dry trees, snow in the background. Everything at the same time. A place outside of time, where time reveals itself. Aphrodite stops in the center. The hours recede, but they do not disappear. They remain on the edges, watching, waiting, like silent sentinels of a moment that needs to happen. You walk slowly to a rock and sit down. You feel your skin crawl. Your heart beats slower. The air feels a little heavier, as if existence itself is bending to make room. Aphrodite opens her eyes. For the first time, she speaks. Just one word, softly. You don't understand. but you feel it. A vibration in your chest, an echo in your ribs, as if her sound was not meant for the ear, but for the body. The world responds with a soft crack, a circular wind, a slight tremor in the ground, nothing threatening, but clear. Something has been accepted. The hours smile briefly. The ceremony is over. The world has recognized her. Aphrodite is now integrated into the rhythm of the universe, not as a cog, but as a necessary deviation. The cycle needs her. Order needs momentum. Predictability needs desire, because that is what makes everything more alive. You take a deeper breath. The forest seems thicker now, the sky bluer, the weather more defined. Aphrodite did not change the world alone, but something aligned around her. An axis readjusted, and that, to those who know how to observe, is more significant than any prophecy. The hours approach once more. They touch the goddess's shoulders, and they say goodbye, not with words, but with a slight nod. Then they return the way they came. Their footsteps make no sound. The leaves do not move. It is as if they had never been there, but you know they were. And you know that the world will never be the same again. Aphrodite remains in the center of the field for a moment longer. He looks around, observes the four corners of the landscape, as if he wanted to keep it all. Then he starts walking again, without rushing, without a stated destination, but now with something different in his eyes. A new weight, a greater awareness. You follow her with your eyes until she disappears among the trees. The sound of the leaves returns, the wind changes, and you understand she was welcomed. The world, which so often rejects what it doesn't understand, this time accepted her, without a fight, without debate. It just felt that it needed her, and it allowed it. Aphrodite is now part of time, and time will bow to her. The forest is behind them. The hours have gone their silent ways, and Aphrodite descends the hills to the nearest village. The humans do not yet know who she is. They have not yet created statues, rituals, or names to define her presence. But they feel her. They feel her before they see her, like when the wind changes and no one can say why, like when the silence becomes thick and the air gains flavor. You are there among them, and you notice that the bodies begin to move differently. Eyes meet more easily, footsteps slow down, hands stop carrying unimportant things, conversations decrease in volume. No one knows the name of the woman approaching along the dirt road with a light cloak and bare feet, but everyone looks, not as if looking at something strange, but as if looking inside themselves, without wanting to. Aphrodite does not try to appear divine. She does not display any power. She does not raise her voice. She does not make promises. She simply exists, and that is enough. The first person to see her is a child. She is sitting in the shade, playing with pebbles. When Aphrodite passes by, the girl stops. She looks. She smiles. A simple smile, like someone who recognizes a figure from a dream. You see this gesture, and you understand. Children feel it before any explanation. Then, an old man. He is leaning on a cane, his eyes tired. When he sees the goddess, his body straightens slightly. For a moment, he remembers who he once was. He remembers that one day he also desired, was also desired, and that is enough. Aphrodite walks through the village as if she were walking through a field. She doesn't ask for permission. She doesn't impose herself, but she changes everything. The woman selling fruit drops an apple. The young man who was sharpening his scythe forgets what he was doing. The couple fighting at the door of their house stop talking, not because they have been overcome by some spell, but because, in front of her, everything that is excessive loses its strength. Everything that is false falls silent. What is left is what really matters. Will, hesitation, truth. You follow her closely. You see how she looks at each person, not with superiority, but with a strange form of silent compassion, as if she understands the struggle of being human, as if she feels, without needing to feel, the weight of choices, losses, and unspoken desires. And for an instant, each person sees themselves reflected in her, not clearly, but enough to remind you that desire is part of being alive, and that's what she brings. Remembrance, not in the sense of memory, but in the sense of presence. A living reminder that there is something beyond the routine. Aphrodite doesn't say what it is. She doesn't offer direction. She just reminds you that it's there, that it exists, that you feel it, and that it may hurt, but it's worth it. The village has no temples, no priests, but after she leaves, some women start leaving flowers on a rock. They don't agree with each other, they just feel like it. Some men leave small objects, a forgotten ring, a piece of bread, a simple necklace. No one says it's an altar, but everyone knows it is. Aphrodite doesn't look back. She never does. Not out of arrogance, but because she doesn't belong to the past. She moves forward, like her own momentum, like the tide that never returns the same. She walks through fields, crosses streams, touches trees, and in each place, something changes. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. She passes by a lonely man who lives in a hut. He sees her through a crack. He doesn't approach her. But that night, for the first time in a long time, he dreams of someone holding his hand. He doesn't see a face, he only feels it, and he wakes up with tears. He doesn't know her name, but he knows that something has passed by there. You feel it too. You're walking close enough to hear her breathing, but you don't dare speak. You don't want to break the spell. And maybe you know that Aphrodite doesn't answer questions. Because she didn't come to give answers. She came to provoke. She came to show what's hidden. Rumors are spreading in the village. They say she heals. She destroys. She loves without choosing. None of these things are lies, but none of them are completely true. Because Aphrodite is not limited to her function. She does not heal with her hands, but she makes the will to live reappear. She does not destroy by choice, but sometimes, just by appearing, she dismantles fragile structures. She loves, yes, but not in the way humans understand. She loves like the sea, in an immense, impersonal, inevitable way. The path goes on, and Aphrodite continues. The earth recognizes her steps. People, even without understanding, keep her memory. And you still there, know that you are following something rare. Not a pilgrimage, but a crossing. Aphrodite among mortals. And nothing will be the same again. She kept walking, village after village, field after field. She didn't build temples. She didn't demand offerings. But the human world began to change around her. Couples stopped pretending. Lonely people looked up at the sky with longing. Old friends touched each other more. It wasn't magic. It was something else. Deeper, more uncomfortable. Desire is not gentle. It exposes. Aphrodite doesn't force anyone to feel. But those who do never return to the same place they were before. The rumors reached Olympus. And, as always, they were more distorted than they needed to be. She's become mortal. She's enchanting men. She's awakening dangerous passions. She's interfering in marriages. Hera heard it first, and her face furrowed. It irritated her. But she couldn't quite explain why. It wasn't jealousy. It was something more subtle. It was the fact that someone was rearranging human feelings without asking permission. Athena listened too, and as always, she feigned indifference. She does not deal well with what cannot be planned, beauty without cause, impulse without strategy. All of this offends her logic. She respects what is rational, and Aphrodite is the opposite of that. She is a force that floats outside categories. She is emotional chaos, dressed in skin. Zeus, on the other hand, was bothered for another reason, not by what she did, but by the fact that she didn't respond to him. This is rare. He is used to dominating, to seducing, to ordering, and Aphrodite, with a calm gaze, seems to go through all this without even noticing. She takes him out of the center, and Olympus revolves, almost always, around Zeus's ego. He thinks, this needs to end, or at least be controlled. So he calls a meeting, a celestial council. He disguises it as a ritual, but everyone knows it is to talk about her. Aphrodite is not present, but her absence weighs as if it were filling all the empty thrones. The gods gather. Each one says something. They disguise their opinion as observation. Ares smiles too much. Hermes says he doesn't understand the commotion. Dionysus just drinks and watches. But Hera, she speaks firmly. She's causing trouble. What kind of problems? Zeus asks, knowing the answer. It messes up structures, families, commitments. She reveals, Hestia murmurs, for the first time. Silence. The word hangs in the air. It reveals. That's what bothers us. Aphrodite doesn't impose anything, but she reveals. Those who love without loving, those who swear fidelity with their eyes on someone else, those who marry out of fear, those who pray for appearances. She passes by, and these things fall, and the gods, so attached to order, control, predictability, feel threatened. Zeus proposes something, a solution. Formalize Aphrodite's position. Offer her a husband, a defined place, limits. Hera agrees. Athena does not object. The others remain silent, and thus the first official decision against the new goddess's freedom is born. You are on Earth, far from the council, but you feel the weather change. The wind carries a new tension. The clouds gather in the sky. The air feels heavy. You look at Aphrodite. She is sitting by a fire, alone, combing her hair with her fingers, oblivious, or pretending to be, because when you look at her more closely, you realize that she knows. She knows what is coming, the siege that is forming, but she doesn't seem worried. And then, the next morning, Hermes appears. He takes the message with all the care he can. Zeus invites her to ascend to Olympus, to discuss her role, her position, her future. Aphrodite listens, silently. Her eyes don't blink, and for a moment, you think she's going to refuse, that she's going to laugh. But no, she accepts. She stands up. She straightens herself and ascends. What she finds there is not a welcome. It is protocol, a tasteless banquet, rehearsed smiles, calculated words. Zeus watches her, as if trying to decide whether she is a threat or a solution. Hera watches her, as if she would like to know what the other thinks. Athena watches her with cold eyes, and Aphrodite, once again, does not react. It is in this environment that discord begins, not with shouting, nor with attacks, but with discomfort. The gods begin to divide. Some admire her, others reject her, and most do not know how to deal with it, because Aphrodite is a goddess who does not ask for entry. She enters and changes everything. You watch the scene from afar without being noticed, but you feel it. You feel that this is just the first crack, that the divine world will never go back to what it was. Because when desire enters, it doesn't ask permission, it only shows what is hidden. Time on Olympus does not pass as it does on Earth. The days stretch out like diplomatic speeches. The nights are too short for real rest. Aphrodite was welcomed as an exotic element. Everyone wanted to see her, measure her, classify her, but no one knew exactly what to do with her. The banquet passed, the smiles disappeared, the looks remained, and she, as always, remained calm. But something inside her was beginning to change. You noticed it first, a tiny gesture, a touch of your own fingers that lingered too long. a glance cast to the ground, not out of humility, but out of distraction. Aphrodite, for the first time, didn't seem fully present. There was something haunting her thoughts. It happened unexpectedly, on the edge of the celestial garden, on a leisurely afternoon. She saw him, Eros, not as a son, not yet, but as a possibility. A young, intense presence, not born from the womb, but from reflection. He did not walk like the other gods. He did not seek attention. He did not pride himself on muscles or wisdom. He simply was. And that, perhaps, is why Aphrodite stopped. Eros saw her, not as others saw her, not with adoration, nor with desire, but with amazement, like someone who encounters a force of nature and does not try to dominate. He simply contemplates. His gaze was not reverent, it was curious, and that gaze disconcerted her. Aphrodite was used to the reactions of others, to the immediate enchantment, to the sighs, the attempts, the empty promises. But Eros looked at her as if it were a question, and that disarmed her. For the first time, she didn't know what to do with the answer. The two of them were silent for a time too long to be casual, sitting on opposite rocks, just breathing the same air. Eros smiled every now and then, but said nothing. Aphrodite did too. The wind passed between them, like a messenger who didn't have the courage to interrupt. You watched from afar. You felt that something was different there. It wasn't just admiration, nor enchantment. It was something else. A type of connection that is born without intention and grows despite the will. After that, she started looking for him with her eyes, not wanting to seem like she was, but looking. He always appeared somewhere, shooting arrows at leave, trying to figure out how many curved shapes there were in the sky. He didn't seem ambitious or strategic, and maybe that's why she felt at peace around him. It was late afternoon when everything became clear. She was standing in an empty courtyard. The golden light touched her face, and Eros arrived without warning. He sat on the ground. He looked at her, and he said, "I don't understand what I feel when I see you, but I don't want to leave." The phrase, so simple, caused an invisible earthquake. Aphrodite felt the ground move. Inside. She didn't answer. She didn't smile. But her heart, that stubborn organ, changed its rhythm. It wasn't desire. It wasn't vanity. It was love, and not the love she inspired in others. It was one that came to her, without her asking for it, without her being able to stop it. You saw the moment she understood. Her body shifted in a different way. Her shoulders dropped, her gaze softened, and she answered, in the lightest voice in the world, "I don't understand either, but I like the silence when you're here." And so it was. No spectacle, no promises. Something new was born, and with it, a new kind of power was also born. Not the power to enchant, but the power to be enchanted. Aphrodite learned that there is a form of love that does not need to dominate, that does not need to win. Just be. Eros did not try to possess her or please her. He just stayed, and this gesture, so simple, had more impact than any prayer. On Olympus, no one noticed, yet, but something about her was different. Aphrodite was still beautiful, desired, but now she knew what it was like to surrender to the feeling she had always provoked in others, and that changed everything. Eros began to walk with her through the gardens. They laughed little, they spoke even less, but when they were together, even time seemed to respect him. The clouds passed more slowly, the winds changed direction. The flowers opened in silence. You followed this, as if you were witnessing a dawn. There is no sound. There is no rush. Only the certainty that something rare is happening. Aphrodite and Eros, not as mother and son, but as reflections of the same force. Love that creates, love that escapes, love that surprises even those who were born of it. And so, Without announcement, without crown, Aphrodite began to change inside, and perhaps that is why, in future stories, she becomes more complex, more human, because true love, even for a goddess, leaves its mark. Love for Eros did not last as a story. It lasted as a state. It did not disappear, but it transformed. Aphrodite continued walking through Olympus with the same silence she had carried since the foam, but something in her gaze was different now. There was depth, weight, wisdom that only comes when you feel what you previously only caused in others. She understood that desire is a mirror, and that to love is often to see yourself reflected in a gaze that you cannot control. But Olympus doesn't like what it doesn't control. Zeus noticed. He watched Aphrodite from afar, trying to find a loophole, a way to balance what she was causing. And then he decided it was time. He called all the major gods together for a new meeting, a new plan. It was time to capture desire, to turn it into property, and the most efficient way to do that, as was almost always the case, was marriage. Aphrodite should get married, not out of love, not out of will, but out of balance, out of divine policy. The idea was not born of affection, it was born of restraint, and Zeus knew exactly who she should be with. Hephaestus, the god of fire, of forges, of construction, the most skillful, the most patient, the most ignored, the one who did not inspire passions, but made the weapons of those who conquered hearts. The logic was simple: place the most unstable goddess next to the most restrained god, as if heat could nullify impulse, as if beauty could be quieted by utility. Aphrodite was not consulted, she was only informed. You were with her when Hermes brought the message. The messenger hesitated, as always. Carrying a message from Zeus was easy. Delivering orders to Aphrodite was something else. She listened to everything in silence. She kept her face calm, but you could tell that something inside her broke. A thin line of control snapped, not visible, but real. She didn't scream, she didn't protest, she just accepted it, not out of obedience, but out of strategy. She knew that resisting now would only bring more restraint. And maybe, just maybe, a part of her wanted to know what would come of this nonsense. Because Hephaestus wasn't foolish, he wasn't cruel, he was just inappropriate. The wedding was simple, quick. Hera organized it, Zeus officiated. The gods watched in silence. Some laughed inwardly, others sighed. Ares clenched his fists. Dionysus drank too much wine. Athena feigned indifference, and Aphrodite, dressed in pale gold, entered the temple without looking around. Hephaestus greeted her with a mixture of pride and embarrassment. I knew it wasn't her choice, but I also knew I couldn't refuse. It was a chance to be seen, to be elevated, to occupy a space next to the goddess everyone wanted, but no one could reach. He did what he knew how to do. He built a palace for her, not of marble, but of molten metal, a warm place, beautiful in its own way, but closed, and Aphrodite entered. You watched her walk through the golden hallways of her new home. The walls shone, the doors slid smoothly, but there were no windows. The light came from inside, and there was no breeze. It was a world without wind, without horizon. She walked through the rooms as if she were walking through a dream that was not hers. Everything was correct, clean, impeccable, and soulless. Hephaestus treated her with respect, with care, but also with distance. He knew he couldn't touch her without breaking something, and he didn't want to force it. So he created gifts, jewelry, fabrics, small inventions, and Aphrodite smiled, thanked him, used them, but the sparkle in her eyes was no longer there. You visited her sometime. You sat beside her in the inner gardens. She spoke little, but her eyes said more than words could. She didn't hate Hephaestus, but she felt erased, as if she had been placed on a pretty shelf, untouchable, safe, but far from the world that made her alive. Olympus calmed down for a while. The rumors stopped. The passions subsided. The villages stopped flaring up. Zeus smiled, satisfied. He thought he had won, that the goddess of beauty was now tamed. But you knew. I knew that this was just the surface, that inside Aphrodite something was still pulsing, and that desire, even when contained, even when closed, even when watched, always finds a crack. She kept breathing, and soon he would move the world again. The days in Hephaestus's palace are long. The light never changes. The weather always seems the same. There are no windows. The sun enters through artificial cracks projected onto metal walls that never really get warm. The air is heavy, not from heat, but from absence of wind, of variation, of surprise. Aphrodite wakes up every morning in the same cold bed, surrounded by polished gold, fine fabrics, and sculptures that don't touch. You see her sitting on the edge of the bed, her feet on the smooth floor, her eyes on nothing. Hephaestus has already left for the forge. He leaves early. He spends hours creating armor, shields, rings, magical artifacts for other gods. He builds with perfection, but rarely returns in a hurry. He respects her, but he doesn't get close. There is no violence. There is no affection, only coexistence. Two worlds, pushed side by side, trying not to collide, but colliding, nevertheless, in silence. Aphrodite walks through the palace as if she were walking through an exhibition where everything is too beautiful to be real. She has no tasks. She doesn't have children yet. She doesn't have a fixed altar. She just walks. She visits the internal gardens, where flowers grow without smell. She observes fountains that gush crystal clear, but tasteless water. Everything works. Nothing moves her. The beauty of that place is technical, precise, almost clinical, and for someone like her, made of instinct and excess, this is suffocating. You follow her. You feel in your body what she doesn't say, the tiredness of existing in a space where there is no error, where everything is planned to the millimeter, where there is no room for stumbles, for impulses, for untimely laughter. Aphrodite was born from chaos, from foam, from the cut of an ancient god, and now she is trapped in a house that looks like a safe. At night, Hephaestus returns. He greets her with a polite gesture. He shows her some new invention, a jewel with rare stones, a bracelet that changes color when touched. Aphrodite smiles, thanks him, tries it on, but her eyes don't shine. She has learned to smile without a soul, and he notices, but he says nothing because he also feels that no matter how hard he tries, he will never be able to reach her. There's no fighting. There's no drama, just distance. Olympus watches. In public, everything seems resolved. Aphrodite is married. She is stable. She is visibly beautiful. But the gods know. They feel. Desire has stopped circulating. Passions have become rare. Love stories have diminished. Without Aphrodite free, the world has become flatter. Ares notices first. The god of war misses the lack of control that precedes battles. He misses the decisions made on impulse. The wars fought for love, jealousy, rivalry. Now, everything is more tactical, colder, and he knows why. The flame that lit the heroes' chests is contained in a bronze palace. He saw it once, in a hallway. She passed by. Her gaze met his, and for a second, Everything came back. You felt it too. The spark. It's still there. Extinguished on the outside, but alive on the inside. Aphrodite still pulses, still desires, but finds no space, and that, in time, will become unbearable. She tries to maintain her routine. She tries to find meaning in repetition, but her body wasn't made for it. She starts waking up later. She sleeps badly. She eats less. She wanders aimlessly through the hallways. She spends hours looking at her own image on the golden surfaces, and she doesn't recognize herself. The woman she sees is beautiful, impeccable, but distant. She has become a portrait, an idea, a possession. Eros, from afar, tries to reach her, but now there are walls, and he respects them. For now, Hermes sends disguised messages. Dionysus invites her to parties. No invitation is accepted, not because she is afraid, but because she is exhausted. Not of the world, but of the absence of it. You sit next to her. In the dry garden, the marble floor is cold. The artificial flowers give off nothing. She leans her head against the wall and says softly, "I don't know how long I can stay here." You don't answer. You just breathe along. The silence is heavy, but necessary. Outside, the world goes on. Humans dream less. Lovers fight less. Stories become simpler, and the gods, satisfied, pretend that this is stability. But you and Aphrodite know, this is not peace. It is pause, and the pause, sooner or later, ends. Aphrodite is not defeated. She is asleep, like the sea on a windless day. But the wind will return, and when he comes back, no one will be ready. Ares is not a subtle god. He arrives with noise, with the smell of iron and sweat, with the haste of someone who cannot wait. While Hephaestus molds metals in silence, Ares breaks everything he sees in front of him. He lives between screams, clashes, conquests. He does not think before acting. He does not hide what he feels, and perhaps that is why, when Aphrodite saw him for the first time after their wedding, something inside her moved. It was not love. It was not enchantment. It was relief. Ares was not what they expected of her. She was not noble, nor kind. She had no poetry in her eyes. She did not offer jewels. She offered presence, noise, body, existence. And in that moment, locked in a palace of gold and silence, that was what she wanted. Something that made noise, something that left a mark. Their meeting had not been planned. She was walking down to the gardens outside, the real ones. The ones that still had dirt. He was there, training with his squires. Sweaty, panting, with cuts on his arms. When he saw her, he stopped. He lowered his sword. His eyes didn't glow. They narrowed, as if he saw danger, but not the kind that scared. The kind that attracted. Aphrodite didn't look away, and the world, for a second, stopped breathing. Ares said nothing. She didn't either. But the next day, he was there again, and the next, and the next. They didn't speak, but they looked at each other, and when they finally spoke, it wasn't about gods. It wasn't about war. It wasn't about Olympus. It was about nothing, and that nothing was everything. You noticed it first, a new rhythm in her voice, a glow that was slowly returning, small but stubborn. She laughed at the smallest things. She touched her hair more often. She walked as if she were remembering the weight of her own body. The golden prison was still the same, but now there was an invisible window. The first touch was in an empty hallway. He passed her, as always. But that day, his hand brushed her arm, lightly, almost by accident, and yet it felt like a fire, not because it was aggressive, but because it was real. Aphrodite felt it. Her body responded before her mind. Her heart raced. The air grew thicker, and she knew. I knew this was the beginning of something dangerous. because it wasn't allowed. It wasn't ideal, but it was inevitable. In the following days, the encounters began, quick, hidden, confusing, but alive, in the middle of the forests, inside caves, in forgotten corridors of Olympus. Ares arrived like a storm. Aphrodite welcomed him, as if opening a window on a hot day. There were no promises. There were no plans. Only need. Two bodies that understood each other effortlessly. You didn't judge. You just observed. And you understood. She wasn't looking for salvation or security. Just remembrance. To remember what it was like to feel, what it was like to be touched without being owned, what it was like to desire without feeling like a prisoner. Ares had changed too. He was still rough, clumsy, direct, but there was tenderness in his gestures, a kind of protection he didn't know how to name. He didn't know how to speak well, but he knew how to listen with his body. He knew how to offer space, and she accepted. Olympus, of course, began to whisper. Gods always know before they should. Hera smelled the scandal from afar. Athena pretended not to see. Dionysus thought it was funny. Hermes just smiled. Hephaestus, for now, knew nothing. But love, or whatever it was, grew in the cracks between armor, veils, lies, masks. Aphrodite began to breathe again. She existed again, inside. Not as a wife, not as a divine function, but as herself. Foam, flesh, desire. And Ares became human beside her. You saw the two of them together one night, lying on the damp grass. Neither of them spoke, their hands intertwined, their eyes lost in the stars. And there, for a second, it seemed like peace. But Olympus does not let passions run wild for long, and the scandal was already approaching. The golden walls of Hephaestus's palace have no ears, but Olympus does, and it's not long before the whispers turn to noise. Ares and Aphrodite, the beauty and the brute, the craftsman's wife and the god of war. The gods, by nature, can't resist a good contradiction. The coldest marriage in heaven, being crossed by the hottest desire in the pantheon. Someone inevitably speaks. Someone inevitably listens, and Hephaestus, the builder, listens. He does not react like a mortal. He does not scream. He does not break anything. He shuts himself away. He returns to his forge, but this time not to create gifts, not weapons. He shapes something else, something discreet, invisible, a trap, a set of thin, almost transparent threads, as strong as steel, a veil that seems like nothing but that imprisons everything. Meanwhile, Aphrodite and Ares continue, in the same encounters, with the same gestures. Nothing has changed, yet she doesn't notice the different look in some of the servants' eyes. Ares doesn't notice Hermes' absence. You see everything, but you can't warn him. The night chosen is ordinary, one of the hidden rooms in the palace, where the ceiling is made of glass, and you can see the sky. She arrives first. She lies down on the cushions. He arrives later, without armor, without weapons. He brings only his body and his name. They touch each other with the calm of someone who is not guilty, of someone who wants nothing more than that moment. And that is why it hurts so much, because in the next instant, the net falls. Invisible, perfect. The two are trapped, naked, exposed, like statues of forbidden desire. Hephaestus's trap is subtle. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't give way. There's nowhere to go. There's no way to cover oneself. Ares tries to break the threads. He can't. Aphrodite closes her eyes, not in shame, in contained fury. And then Hephaestus calls the gods. Everyone comes, one by one, without saying why, just the invitation. When they arrive, they find the couple trapped, the room lit up, the bed exposed, and everyone laughs. It's an uncomfortable laugh. Too loud, too long. They laugh to hide their discomfort. They laugh to avoid admitting that they wish they were in Ares's place. They laugh to avoid facing Aphrodite's freedom. Even Apollo laughs. Even Hermes. Even Dionysus, who should understand. Hera doesn't laugh. She just watches. Athena frowns. Poseidon feigns surprise. Aphrodite, still trapped, looks up. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't cry. She doesn't pretend. She just looks. And in that look, there's something crueler than shame. There's contempt. She knew. She knew that Olympus was too small to accept uncontrolled desire. She knew that one day they would make a spectacle of her. Hephaestus watches quietly. He feels proud of his ingenuity. You feel pain too, but you feed on the humiliation you imposed. And this will later eat away at you, because when someone chooses exposure as revenge, they never fully heal. You are there, and you feel the ground move, not because of an earthquake, but because of discomfort, because there is something wrong with all that performance. Desire, which has always been something intimate, has become a joke. Love, even if twisted, has become a weapon. And Aphrodite, the goddess who represents everything that can be felt without explanation, has become a joke in the hallway. When the trap is finally broken, Ares disappears for a while. He returns to the war, to the blood, to the noise that distracts him. Aphrodite returns to Hephaestus's palace, not because I want to, but because there is no other place. And there she retreats. On the outside, nothing changes. The beauty remains, the walk, the face, the hair. But on the inside, everything is denser, sharper. You see her walk through the inner courtyard. She looks up at the sky, where the stars are not to blame. She takes a deep breath. She closes her eyes, and you realize she has no regrets, because desire is not born to please, and it does not always come with permission. Olympus continues with its parties, its trials, its jokes, but something there has broken, an invisible pact, an idea that you can contain the impulse, hide what bothers you. The trap worked, but the wound remained, and Aphrodite will never be seen in the same way again. The silence after the scandal is what hurts the most. The laughter is gone, the whispers have died down, the show is over, but the echo continues. Aphrodite returns to the palace without protest. No one forces her. No one stops her, because no one wants to deal with what comes next. She walks alone through the cold corridors, wearing the same golden dress as before, but now it weighs her down, not physically, but symbolically. It weighs her down as if it were a burden, sewn together with the gazes of others. You walk behind her. You see how the servants look away, how the hallways, once so clean, now seem larger, emptier. Hephaestus is not there. He left early and did not return. He left the house open, but absent. Aphrodite enters the room. She closes the door slowly, not angrily, carefully, as if every gesture now requires restraint. She sits in front of the mirror. She examines her own face. It is the same, but something has changed. She doesn't cry. You've already learned that. Aphrodite rarely cries. She feels, and what she feels now is harder to name. It's not pure sadness, nor fury. It's something between weariness and contempt. A goddess made to provoke desire was used as entertainment, exposed, commented on, reduced to laughter. But what no one realized is that, in that room, there was no real humiliation. There were two bodies that recognized each other, and that, perhaps, was the real scandal. The following days are quiet. She doesn't go out. She doesn't show up at banquets. She doesn't visit the gardens. She doesn't accept invitations, but she doesn't hide. She remains visible, untouchable, present in her absence. When the gods mention her, They do so cautiously, as if saying too much could rekindle the spark. Hera comments that everything is over, that it's time to move on. Zeus says nothing, but he watches, with that restlessness that never goes away. Ares has disappeared. No one knows where he is, or pretends not to know. You see Aphrodite walking along the inner balcony. Her feet are bare, her hair is loose. The wind doesn't blow in, but she pretends to feel it. She closes her eyes, she leans in, and you understand. She doesn't want to run away. She wants to endure. She wants to prove that she can remain whole, even when they try to tear her apart. And that is a kind of strength that Olympus has never known how to measure. Hephaestus returns after a few days. He warns her in advance. He enters without ceremony. He goes straight to the forge. He doesn't look for her. He doesn't confront her. He acts as if nothing had happened. But his silence is denser than any scream. He doesn't ask for explanations. He doesn't offer reconciliation. He simply lives by her side, like two strangers who share the same roof, but not the same world. Aphrodite respects this distance, but she doesn't cancel herself out. She starts writing. She scribbles poems on wax tablets. She walks the halls with determination. She reorganizes her own gestures, and you realize she's not trying to clean up her image. She's trying to reaffirm her own right to exist outside the morals of others. And that's revolutionary. Humans, even from a distance, feel it. Down below, in the cities, rumors take on new tone. Some say she was betrayed. Others, that she betrayed out of pride. Some see her as a victim, others as a threat. But in all the reports, she is mentioned intensely, because even shrouded in silence, she continues to generate conversation, continuation, reaction. Aphrodite is desire, and desire never goes away. It only changes form. You sit with her on a cloudy afternoon. The sky is colorless. The ground is cold. She holds an apple in her hands. She doesn't bite into it. She just stares. You ask slowly, "Why didn't you leave?" She looks at you, just for a second, and answers, "Because leaving is letting them win." And then, for the first time in a long time, she smiles. A short, quiet smile, but genuine. And you understand, she is not defeated. She is on pause. She is rebuilding. She is allowing the public shame to dissolve into history, because the goddess who was born from the foam already knows judgment, and she has survived the salt. That night, she goes down to dinner, alone, in the main hall. She sits at the table. She eats slowly, as if she is relearning her own rhythm, and the gods feel it. Up above, someone whispers her name, and the memory of who she is begins to return, not as a scandal, but as a presence. Aphrodite did not disappear. I was just waiting for the right moment to start over. Time passed, not much, but enough for the scandal to become a murmur, and the murmur to become a memory. Aphrodite resumed her habit of walking through the gardens. She returned to appearing at assemblies, at parties, in temples, but always at a slight distance, as if she were marking her own limits, with her body, with her gaze, with her silence. She did not apologize, nor did she provoke. She simply followed. You were with her one bright morning. When she suddenly stopped walking, she put her hand to her belly, not in pain, but in wonder, a kind of quiet wonder, as if something inside her had changed. Without asking permission, she didn't say anything, but you knew. Something was brewing there. Aphrodite was pregnant. The father, of course, was Ares, the god of war, the absent one, the impulsive one, the passionate one. He was no longer on Olympus. He disappeared after Hephaestus's trap. He disappeared like the sound that recedes after thunder, but he left something behind, something alive, something that was now growing inside the body of the goddess, that everyone wanted to tame. The gods reacted as they always do, first with surprise, then with discomfort. Zeus did not forbid it, but he did not celebrate it either. Hera frowned and walked away. Athena pretended not to hear. Only Hestia smiled discreetly and placed new flowers in the garden at the entrance. Aphrodite didn't ask for protection or an explanation. She lived through her pregnancy in silence, but not in solitude. You were by her side, and you saw everything. You saw how she touched her belly tenderly, how her eyes became slower, deeper, sweeter. Her anger disappeared. Her pride gave way. Her tiredness transformed. She didn't become another person, but another version of herself. In the 7th month, she began to sing, alone, at night, songs you had never heard before, songs without words, just sounds, sounds that seemed to soothe the earth, the birds, Olympus itself. It was as if she were creating a field around herself, a space where the world could finally breathe, without armor. And then, one morning when the sky was clear and the wind was warm, the child was born. There was no thunder, no omens, no commotion, just a soft light that invaded the room. And then, silence. A silence so deep that it seemed to protect that moment. Aphrodite held the girl in her arms. She looked at her for long minutes. Then, she murmured a name, Harmony, and so it was. You came closer. You saw the child's eyes. They were calm, fixed, without fear, as if they already knew what the world expected of her, as if they already understood that her birth was not just a consequence, it was a response. Harmony was born from the encounter between desire and strength, from impulse and war. And this was unprecedented. Aphrodite changed after that. She didn't become someone else, but she came back more whole, with more focus. She walked with her daughter in her arms. She sang to her. She breastfed patiently. She let the girl hold her hair, her fingers, her clothes. She allowed touch, for the first time, to come without intention. The gods were surprised. Some said she was calmer. Others said she was more human. None of them understood, because on Olympus, raising children is about delegating. It's about handing them over to nymphs, servants, and automatic destinies. But Aphrodite did it differently. She took care of things with her own hand, without disguise, without shame, and you understood what that meant. For the first time, she was the center of something that didn't need to be seduced. Harmonia didn't see her mother as a symbol or as a scandal. She saw her as skin, as warmth, as a lap, and that was all. Ares appeared when the girl turned 1. He appeared one morning, as if he had never left. He arrived without explanation, without excuse. He looked at Aphrodite with sincere eyes, and then he looked at his daughter. The world stood still for a second, but Aphrodite simply said, "She knows who you are," and let him hold her. Ares stayed for a while. He played with Harmonia. He got the wrong way to grab her. He laughed when she tried to bite his armor. Aphrodite watched, without judgment, without demands. She just let it be. And that day, Olympus saw the two of them together, not as a couple, nor as lovers, but as two poles that for an instant managed to meet at a common point. You watched them leave for the field, walking in silence, Ares holding his daughter on his shoulders, Aphrodite beside him, her feet in the grass. It wasn't an ending, nor a beginning. It was just a moment where everything fit together. Harmony would grow, and one day, he would bring to the world what his parents were never able to fully experience. Balance. The years passed slowly, and Harmonia grew up between two worlds. One was made of gold, marble, ceremonies, and rules, and that was enough. Aphrodite looked at the scene from afar. She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. The daughter was ready. Time, on Olympus, does not leave wrinkles, but it does leave postures. And Harmonia was no longer seen as a child. She had the height of a goddess, a firm gaze, words that stopped conversations. The other gods noticed, and what had previously been curiosity began to turn into interest. Not the pure interest of someone who wants to know more, but the tactical interest of someone who feels that she can be useful. Zeus was the first to approach. With vague compliments, diplomatic invitations, he spoke of the future, of position, of alliance. Harmonia listened with respect, but her eyes did not smile. She knew he did not truly see her. He saw a possible link between Aphrodite and Ares, a way to contain two extremes through his daughter, to transform balance into a tool of power. Then came Athena, and she was more subtle. She offered advice, books, arguments. She talked about strategies, about logic, about the value of neutrality. Harmonia heard it all. But when Athena finished, she simply asked, "Do you feel at peace?" And the goddess of reason did not know what to say. Hera tried too. She spoke of duty, of maintaining order, of protecting Olympus from disorder. And Harmonia, in a low voice, replied, "Sometimes it is order that suffocates." Hera did not answer. She just left her there, among columns and echoes. You were with Aphrodite when she began to notice the movements around her daughter. You saw the way she observed the meetings, the conversations, the invitations. She didn't interrupt, but she noted everything with her eyes. And one cold night, when Harmonia was sleeping, she said to you, "They will try to pull her in every direction because they cannot bear what she is, whole." And so she decided to act, but not with prohibitions or with rules. Aphrodite had never been that kind of person. Instead, she began to tell stories. Stories that Harmonia had never heard. Stories from the time before the gods, before hierarchies, before statues. Sitting together under the clear sky, Aphrodite spoke of Gaia, of the earth she feels, of Nyx, the primitive night that embraces. She spoke of the tides that do not ask for permission, of the passions that shape kingdoms, of the pains that reveal character. And Harmonia listened attentively, not as a disciple, but as someone who receives an inheritance that cannot be kept, only lived. "You won't please everyone," Aphrodite said, "and if you try, you'll lose yourself." Harmonia nodded. She knew that, but she didn't yet know what to do with that knowledge. It was then that the proposal arrived. A wedding, not arranged by force, but suggested as an alliance. A mortal prince, son of warring kingdoms. A peace agreement sealed by blood and unity. His name, Cadmus. Wise, respected, fearless, not vain, not cruel, just human, and tired of violence. Zeus supported. Hera approved. Athena saw strategy. Even Ares, from afar, recognized merit. Only Aphrodite hesitated, not because Cadmus was unworthy, but because Harmonia was not made to marry by agreement. She was made to decide. You were there when they told you. Harmonia didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just asked for time. She spent days in silence, alone, looking at the map of the world of men, studying the name of the one who could become hers. Then she asked to meet him. The meeting was simple. In a clearing, without a throne, without ceremony, Cadmus arrived on foot. His face was serious, but sincere. He didn't try to impress. He simply said, "I don't want you to save me. I just want to build something where war doesn't come through the front door." Harmonia watched him for a long time, and then she replied, "And if I marry you, it's because I chose to, not because of an alliance, not because of a plan. For me." Cadmus nodded, and she smiled. That night, Aphrodite held her, for the first time in years, tightly, not as a goddess, but as a mother. He knew his daughter was stepping out of his circle, but stepping out on her own 2 feet. That made all the difference. You saw them sitting together in silence afterwards. The sky was opening. The wind was light. Nothing was said, but you understood. The story was about to change its setting, and Harmonia, the daughter of love and war, was going to launch herself into the world with what she had learned. It is not always possible to avoid conflict, but it is possible to choose how to go through it, and that choice was hers alone. The wedding day was approaching, and with it, Olympus was in turmoil, not out of joy, but out of anxiety, because Harmonia, daughter of Aphrodite and Ares, was going to marry a mortal, and that shook ancient structures. Aphrodite watched everything with attentive eyes. She showed no anxiety, but she did not hide her concern either. She knew that her daughter's marriage would not be just a union. It would be a symbol, and symbols on Olympus are dangerous. You saw her preparing Harmonia's dress. It wasn't white. It was a soft shade of gold, almost amber, like a sunset, like the transition between day and night, a dress that didn't seek purity but balance. Harmonia, on the other hand, remained calm. She walked through the corridors with firm steps. She responded to greetings with kindness, but without submission. She knew what she was doing, and she knew that many expected her to fail. Zeus organized the ceremony with pomp. Hera took care of the details. Athena prepared speeches. Dionysus planned the party, but Aphrodite took care of her daughter, her silence, her gestures, her unspoken fears. On the eve of the wedding, Ares appeared. He appeared in the garden, as he always did, without warning, without ceremony. Harmonia saw him and ran to him, not like a child, but like a daughter who recognizes her father. They talked for hours, sitting under an olive tree. You didn't hear what they said, but you saw Ares' eyes, and in them there was pride and a touch of sadness, because he knew that by giving up his daughter, he was giving up something he never fully had. The next morning, the sky was clear. The sun shone with unusual intensity. The gods gathered in the great hall. The mortal guests arrived with wide eyes. They had never seen such splendor. Harmony entered accompanied by Aphrodite. She walked down the central aisle with light steps. Her golden dress reflected the sunlight, and for a moment, everyone was silent, because there, before them, was the union of love and war, of the goddess and man, of Olympus and the earth. Cadmus was waiting for her at the altar, dressed simply, but with dignity. When he saw her, he smiled, and in that smile, there was respect and admiration. The ceremony began. Zeus spoke of alliances, Hera of duty, Athena of wisdom. But when Aphrodite approached to bless her daughter, she said only, "May you know how to love without losing yourself, and fight without hardening yourself." And then he gave his daughter a necklace, a gift from the gods, made by Hephaestus, a necklace of incomparable beauty. But like everything on Olympus, it carried a curse, because the gods do not know how to give without asking for anything. Harmonia accepted the gift gratefully, but you noticed a slight tremor in her hands, as if she felt the weight of what was to come. The party continued with music, dancing, and wine, but Aphrodite left early. She went to the garden. She sat under the olive tree, where Ares and Harmonia had been talking, and there, alone, she wept, not of sadness, but of relief, because her daughter had chosen. And even knowing the dangers, she kept going, with courage, with love. You came closer. You sat down next to her, and together, you looked at the sky where the stars were beginning to appear. And Aphrodite said, "This is what love is, surrendering to the unknown and still moving forward." And you understood that at that moment, Aphrodite was not just the goddess of love. She was a mother who had created a daughter capable of uniting worlds. The first days after the wedding were calm, strangely calm. Harmonia and Cadmus left for his kingdom, where mortals awaited a new era. She, still dressed in the splendor of the gods. He, with the humility of someone who knows he has received more than he asked for, and together they began to rule, not with force, but with listening. Aphrodite watched them from afar, not with distance, but with respect. He knew that it was no longer time to intervene. He knew that Harmonia now had her own destiny, and yet, every now and then, she sent signs. A wind that blew in difficult times, a flower that bloomed out of season. Small reminders that love, when true, does not need to be close to be real. But Olympus never forgets. The necklace Harmonia wore, a gift from Aphrodite, forged by Hephaestus, was too beautiful to be harmless, and like everything that carries power, it also carried consequences. It was a necklace that promised eternal beauty, luck, allure, but it hid something else: instability, envy, desire for others. The kind of gift that seems like a blessing and, in time, reveals itself to be a test. You noticed it first. The people around Harmonia began to change. Advisors became ambitious. Servants whispered too much. Couples fought for no reason. Children cried for no reason. The kingdom, which once seemed in harmony with the queen's name, was now slowly falling apart. Cadmus noticed, but he didn't know what to do. Harmonia saw it too, but she hesitated, because the necklace was a gift from her mother, and rejecting the gift would be like denying love. You saw her sitting in front of the mirror, holding the necklace between her fingers, breathing deeply, as if trying to remember why something that was given with love is causing so much pain. Aphrodite, up there, began to feel it too. She felt the air chain. She felt the weight of the confused prayers, but she didn't intervene. She knew it was too soon, that some truths only reveal themselves at the limit, and that Harmonia still needed to understand for herself the value of choices that seem present but are traps. Then came the first disaster. A man, overcome with jealousy, attacked his brother. A woman abandoned her son out of sudden passion. 2 soldiers killed each other over a misunderstanding. All this in a few days, and Harmonia began to get sick, not in body, but in soul. You saw it. She walked slower. She spoke less. Her eyes lost focus. The kingdom still loved her, but it was beginning to doubt itself. It was at this point that Aphrodite descended, not as a goddess, but as a mother. He appeared to his daughter in an empty field, without veils, without gold, with his feet on the ground and his hair loose. Harmonia saw him and cried. For the first time since she was a child, she fell to her knees and said, "I don't know what to do anymore." Aphrodite came closer. She touched his face and said, "Sometimes the love we give, without knowing it, hurts more than the hate we avoid. I gave you the necklace to protect you, but the world sees beauty as possession, and everything that shines too much attracts what cannot be controlled." Harmonia took off her necklace for the first time, and as she dropped it on the ground, her body felt lighter, as if she had removed an old burden. But the necklace did not break. It continued to shine, and right there, on that land, he began his own journey, because the necklace no longer belonged to Harmonia. It belonged to history and stories. Don't obey their creators. You follow the 2 of them walking back, speechless, because nothing else needed to be said. Harmonia had understood that love is not control, that beauty is not a shield, and that what is inherited one day must be left behind. The kingdom would return to peace, not immediately, but little by little, like someone learning to breathe after a fright. Cadmus would remain by her side, not as a savior, but as a partner, and together they would build something new, something that no god had planned. Aphrodite returned to Olympus, in silence, but lighter, because she knew that her daughter was now whole, And the necklace waited, silently, for the next hand. The necklace remained in the field for a short time. One day, a peasant found it. It was too beautiful to be left there. He took it home, thinking of giving it to his wife, but before he could, he was killed by a thief who saw him from afar. The thief was killed by another, and so it began. The necklace, which had been given as a symbol of blessing, now remained as the seed of tragedy. You saw the hands he passed through: queens, servants, warriors, wives, prostitutes. Each one desired him for a reason: beauty, protection, status, luck. None of them knew his origin. None of them imagined that they were taking for themselves not an ornament, but a dilemma. Because the necklace didn't hurt directly, it was subtle. It increased desires. It made the eyes of others more greedy. It turned beauty into weight and desire into poison. Wherever it went, loves were undone, pacts were broken, loyalties ran like water through fingers. Aphrodite watched from afar, and she felt an uneasiness that she couldn't name, because that necklace was given with love. It was intended as a gift, but like everything that is born on Olympus, it came contaminated by complexity. It was too beautiful to be neutral, and now it was beyond everyone's control. It was as if the object itself had acquired a will. You were by her side when the news came. A foreign queen had received the necklace. She was young, ambitious, beautiful, and with it around her neck, she seduced allies, destroyed rivals, and watched her kingdom crumble from within. People stopped trusting. Generals were divided. Families turned against each other. And in the end, there was ash left. Aphrodite closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She simply said, "Maybe the love we try to force turns against us even more strongly." She knew the necklace had to stop, but the gods have rules. And once something is given, it cannot be taken back, not even by the one who created it. The necklace was now part of the world, and the world, as always, would do with it what it wanted. It was Hermes who suggested an idea: that the necklace be sealed, buried, forgotten. But Aphrodite hesitated, because part of her still believed that maybe, one day, someone could wear it without falling, that maybe there would still be those who understood that beauty is not possession, that love is not armor. Meanwhile, Harmonia continued her life with Cadmus. They traveled through villages. They helped rebuild cities. They taught that peace does not come ready-made. It needs to be cared for, discussed, started over every day. Harmonia spoke little, but where she spoke, she was heard. Cadmus protected, but did not lead. He walked alongside. They knew about the necklace. They knew what was happening. And sometimes, at night, Harmonia would write letters to her mother, telling stories of people who, even without gold, managed to live with dignity, of children who played even among ruins, of women who said no, and men who learned to listen. Aphrodite read them one by one, and she felt something different, not pride, but relief, because, despite everything, there was beauty outside of Olympus, a beauty that needed no necklaces or veils, only space. You saw, when the story reached a new point, a warrior, not knowing what he was carrying, gave the necklace to his daughter before leaving for battle. She wore it for one night. The next day, her father died. Her fiancé disappeared, and the village was invaded. She buried the necklace in the river, and she promised never to speak its name again. Some say he is still there. Others say he has returned to Olympus. Some say he has disappeared for good. Aphrodite, upon hearing this, did not smile, nor did she cry. She simply murmured, "Maybe now he has learned to rest." And you realized that, in that whisper, there was some truth, because even the creations of the gods need to end, and the necklace, it had already lived too long. The world would move on, with new passions, new wars, new harmonies. But that story had come to an end. Aphrodite looked at the sky. The night was clear, and for the first time in a long time, it seemed peaceful. After all, Olympus grew quieter. It wasn't total silence. The gods were still talking, fighting, plotting, but something had changed. It was as if a layer had been peeled back, as if the veil that covered the face of desire had been folded and put away. No one spoke of the necklace anymore, or the scandal, or the wedding, but Aphrodite's name still echoes. You find her in the garden, the same as before, but with fewer flowers, less brightness, more shade. She is sitting under a tree, her feet on the ground, her hands in her lap. There is no jewelry, no veils, just a light tunic and a distant gaze. She does not look sad or happy. She seems quiet, as if she has made peace with a part of herself that previously insisted on proving itself. The world has changed, the gods have changed, even humans have changed, but she remains. Not because she doesn't feel, but because she has learned not to run after everything. You sit next to her. She doesn't speak, she just breathes. The sound of the leaves is louder than any thought. Over time, Aphrodite began to attend fewer parties, fewer altars, fewer ceremonies. The cult continues. They still make offerings. They still invoke her name in moments of passion, jealousy, sudden beauty, but she herself responds less and less, not out of contempt, but out of respect, because she understood. Love, if called with every breath, becomes noise. It needs space to grow, a gap, time. You see her walking through the mountains, alone, without a destination. Sometimes she stops. She closes her eyes. She stays like that for minutes, as if she hears something that you can't hear, as if she remembers something that hasn't happened yet. One day, she meets a young woman on the road, a peasant woman. Her face is simple. Her hands are dirty with dirt. The young woman recognizes her, not with reverence, but with astonishment. She asks if she is really who they say she is. Aphrodite doesn't answer. She just smiles. The young woman offers her an apple. Aphrodite accepts it. She eats it slowly, and before leaving she says, "Keep planting, even when no one is watching, and go away." You realize that she no longer seeks grand gestures, grand stories. She has lived through many. Now, she prefers small encounters, the moments that don't become legends, but that sustain life. Time passes. Harmony grows old. Cadmus too. And one day, like all mortals, they leave, not with pain, but with dignity. They leave behind children, grandchildren, cities. They leave behind stories that become myths, and the name of harmony spreads like a breeze, like a seed. Aphrodite feels. She doesn't cry, but she closes her eyes for longer. She walks slower. She speaks less, not because she is weak, but because she is full of memories, layers, understandings. You find her one night sitting by the sea, the same sea from which she emerged. The foam still dances, the waves still sing. She watches in silence, as if she were talking to the beginning. The wind blows hard, her hair flies, and for a second, you see her as before, the goddess who emerged from the waters, whole, incomprehensible, free. She says, "I was born without wanting. I grew up being desire, and now I just want to breathe." You understand? Because every cycle ends, even the ones that have no end. Olympus continues. New heroes emerge, new wars, new passions, but her name changes. It doesn't disappear. It just changes tone. It stops being a scream. It becomes a whisper. It stops being a demand. It becomes a memory. Aphrodite begins to live between worlds, sometimes on Olympus, sometimes among mortals. sometimes in the sea, sometimes nowhere. She does not disappear. She just walks in silence, and those who need her feel her. You see her for the last time on top of a hill. The sun is setting slowly. The sky is golden. She is standing, alone. Her eyes are closed. Her face is calm. And in that moment, you understand everything. Aphrodite is not just the goddess of love. It is the space between one touch and the next, the moment before the kiss, the pause before delivery, the foam that precedes the wave. And now she rests. Night came slowly, unhurriedly, the kind of night that doesn't need to announce anything. It just settles in, and the world accepts it. The sea, which used to dance with foam, now moves more calmly, less shine, more rhythm. You're there, sitting on a rock, looking at the horizon. The breeze touches your face, but doesn't bother you. It's fresh, clean. It reminds you to breathe slowly. Aphrodite is not visible, but she is there, somewhere between the water and the sky, not as a figure, nor as a memory, but as a diffuse presence, like the scent of a flower in the distance, like music that you cannot hear, but know is playing. She does not speak. She does not need to. Everything has already been said. Everything that needed to be felt is already within you. Time slows down. Your shoulders relax. Your thoughts lose volume. That constant weight, the demanding inner voice, the tension in your neck, the restlessness that can never be explained, all of it starts to diminish, not because it's gone, but because it's become smaller, because it doesn't matter anymore, at least for a while. You lie down on the cool sand. You watch the stars. They don't move, but they don't stand still either. They just patiently take their places, as if they know there's no need to rush. Up above, Olympus might still be spinning. Maybe Dionysus is still drinking. Maybe Zeus is having another power meeting. Maybe Hera is still trying to keep things under control. But none of it gets you here, because here is the end of the story and the beginning of sleep. Aphrodite, the goddess who was born from the foam and lived among scandals, passions, silences, and choices, now rests within you, not as a myth, but as a sensation, as a subtle reminder that love, deep down, is space. It is listening. It is pause. It is what is left when you finally stop fighting yourself. You remember her in so many versions. The young woman who emerged from the sea, fearless, nameless. The wife who was never chosen. The lover who dared to feel. The mother who watched her daughter leave. The woman who learned to be silent when the world only wanted noise. All these forms are still there, inside you, because she was never just a goddess. She was a mirror, a reflection, a voice that whispers very softly. You don't have to run so much. The waves continue. They touch the sand with an almost hypnotic constancy. They come, 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 and you breathe with them. Your body loosens up. Your hands relax. Your feet warm. Your eyes grow heavy. You don't need to go anywhere. Not now. Not while the sea still sings. Far away, a shooting star crosses the sky. And you don't make a wish. You just watch, because you understand that the moment is enough in itself. That not every wish needs to become a goal. That some things can simply be and last as long as they need to last. Aphrodite, if she could speak now, she might say something like, I'm glad you stayed until the end. Not everyone can do it. Many want shortcuts. They want the climax, the resolution, the label. But you stayed. And so, now you can rest. And it's true. You stayed. You were there for everything. From the fatherless birth, to the forbidden loves, from the golden veils, to the bare feet on the grass, from the foam of the beginning, to the silence of the hill. And now you can sleep, because this story doesn't end. It just rests, like the body that surrenders to the mattress, like the breath that finds its rhythm, like the heart that beats without explaining itself. You don't have to remember everything or understand everything. Just take this feeling with you that there is beauty in the pauses, that there is value in not knowing what comes next, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is close your eyes. Good night, and may Aphrodite continue to visit you whenever you forget how to breathe slowly.